Hey everybody, you've come to the right place. I'm Chloe Radcliffe. I'm coming to you from New York City, and I'm the goodness barista today for today's Good Leadership Breakfast. Paul likes to say that my job as the barista is to whip up the buzz about good leadership and how goodness pays. And so I'm here to encourage you to post on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, any of your thoughts about today's meeting, and we'll see those thoughts. In about 2 minutes, we will start the breakfast, and I want to encourage you to use the chat on the right side of your screen to send us your name, where you're at in the world. Tell us where you're coming from. Tell us what you think. And also, you will see the polling tab on your right. When the time comes, we will be asking you to go to that tab and participate in our polling.
Most people agree the difference between surviving and thriving in business today is good leadership. But what exactly is good leadership? Good leadership is the art and science of people working together to create great results. You see it when leaders with good character multiply their impact with proven success habits. Great results happen when people work together and create a positive impact on their customers, colleagues, and their communities. Good Leadership is also a game-changing consulting firm headquartered in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Unlike other firms who coach individuals, Good Leadership coaches teams to exceed their goals, both personally and professionally. The firm's mission is to spread the idea goodness pays. What's goodness? Goodness in business is when people thrive together in a culture of encouragement, accountability, and positive teamwork. Good Leadership coaches accelerate alignment in teams during disruptive changes in the business. And they bring out the goodness in people with a proven process called the Goodness Pays Leadership System. It's worth your time to learn more because leading with goodness is confirmed by research to produce better business results. The secret is here in this exceptional book, How Goodness Pays. So if you want to explore new ways to produce better results faster, visit goodleadership.com. Watch for a goodness dinner near you, or get tickets to a Good Leadership Breakfast series. It's an exciting workshop held only in Minneapolis 8 times a year.
Hello from New York City, and congratulations for investing in yourself as a good leader who radiates goodness. Like I said, I'm Chloe Radcliffe. I'm your host and goodness barista, and my job is to encourage you to spread goodness through social media and to participate in the interactive parts of this program. And we already have a shout out from Monticello, Minnesota. Hi, Jane. We're so happy that you're with us for the program today. And now it is time to toss it over to Paul Botz, the founder and creator of this event, a thought leader in the executive coaching industry, whose firm Good Leadership is creating the category of executive team coaching. Hey, Paul.
Hey, Chloe. Thanks for joining us. It looks like it's a nice day in New York City again. Well, it's obvious that the pandemic has forced us out of a ballroom with 200 people and into a TV studio for the 12th year of the Good Leadership Breakfast. Thanks to the production team of MCN6 here in Minneapolis, today's online broadcast is beaming off to every corner of the U.S. And that's where the goodness is as we pivot to a new model. Because we're broadcasting, we have guests from all across the country and many people who are new to the Good Leadership Breakfast. This whole thing started as an impromptu gathering of leaders in January of 2010 during the depths of the Great Recession. Through the determination of a very small group of people and some really intriguing speakers, the program just kept growing and growing. And every month we feasted on a fabulous breakfast with live music by the Benny Weinbeck Trio. Right up until COVID, we hosted more than 20,000 guests who collectively contributed more than $335,000 to charities. Today's meeting, featuring Bruce DeWitt, the CEO of Testek, is the 89th episode of this leadership development series. Our mission is to spread goodness through good leaders because we've proven goodness pays. We are specifically advancing the idea that good leadership is a team sport because goodness is when people thrive together. Good leaders know that nothing significant ever happens alone. Today's meeting is focused on an idea we call operational assurance. Let's meet our speaker for today. He's an accomplished military veteran whose experience in aviation helped him rise to become the CEO of a mid-sized growth company in the aerospace industry. Bruce DeWitt, hey, will you please tell us the 1-minute story of what is Testek and what is your mission?
You bet. Testek was founded the same year that Neil Armstrong walked on the moon, 1969.
Huh.
And since then, it has grown to be the world's largest independent provider of test equipment for aircraft all over the world. Every aircraft has thousands of components on it. And each one of those components must be tested to make sure that their aircraft can fly safely, the passengers arrive safely. We like to think that nothing flies without Testek.
I'm going to think about airplanes differently now when I fly the next time, for sure.
You and me both.
Well, I also know that you were trained as a pilot in the Air Force, and that you went on to fly some jet airplanes and even become a test pilot. I heard you tell me that you flew enemy aircraft under the cover of darkness.
Could be.
But true or false now, did you actually fly the Goodyear blimp?
Yes, that's true. It's got a big wheel like a tugboat. And I flew it over LA, but not during a Super Bowl or anything like that.
Well, I look forward to hearing about how all of those experiences helped you become the successful CEO that you are today.
Really interesting. I can't wait to hear the full interview. Paul, this is our first fighter pilot we've had, right?
Yeah, I think it's also the first person that ever flew the Goodyear blimp as well. Well, anyway, building up to today's breakfast, we shared a one-question leadership survey through social media. Chloe, it's now time will you read us the question and show us the answers that we collected?
Yeah, the question that we shared was, yes or no, is your direct leader proactively promoting goodness in their decision-making within your organization? And the answers that we got back were 73% yes and 27% no.
Okay, so 3 out of 4. Okay, well, that question was the centerpiece of the research in our signature book, this one, How Goodness Pays. So what we know from that data, 73%, we know when 90% of an employee population in any organization answers yes to this question, the probability of delivering on your financial goals is extremely high. If the scores are in the 70s and 80s, like we got today, the leadership is what we call goodness neutral. It's not helping or hurting. But if that score drops into the 60s or below, that's not good leadership. Those leaders are actually holding back the potential in the organization. This research was really, really important for several reasons. Here's 2 that I can think of right now. 4 out of 5 leaders say they believe goodness pays. And yet only 2 of those 5 are happy with the consistency of their financial results. In other words, half of the leaders who believe in goodness don't know how to make it pay financially. Second, the research also revealed what goodness-oriented leaders do, their success habits. What they do to consistently create financial results, we call them the 5 goodness pays factors, and we use them in our coaching with executive teams like at Testek.
Follow-up polling question for today's audience. For everybody who's in the meeting right now can answer a follow-up polling question. And we're going to go deeper into this idea that goodness pays. Well, let's do that poll now. So as a reminder, this is the polling tab next to where you put in your questions for Bruce. And here's the question. I am energized when I explain our plan and goals to others, yes or no? You have 1 minute to respond. I'll share the data. And while everybody is answering the poll, Paul, this question seems elementary to me. Why do you ask this question?
Well, what we've learned in our research is the most important predictor of great financial results is that the leaders and the employees need to have a business plan they actually believe to be compelling. It's an important word. And it's also the word energized that carries the power in this question that we asked. Over 11 years of doing this work, only 54% of the executive teams, just over half, that we've surveyed for the first time, have a plan in place that they find compelling. You know, a plan that's energizing is at baseline the most important thing. So that's where we start. We want to make sure we create better results faster with clients by making sure they believe in their plan. The Team Momentum Survey is the only tool of its kind in the executive coaching industry, and it's available to you if you want it. All you have to do is send a note to info@goodleadership.com.
Energized when I explain our plan and goals to others. 93% yes, 7% no. April. Oh, the poll's still changing.
Yeah.
But we're seeing that the numbers are in the 90s.
That's amazing. So the combination of having a plan that people find is energizing, also with a vision and purpose that is motivating to people. And clearly that's the case here with 9 out of 10 people saying yes. It's terrific, because the first way to make goodness pays is to make sure that people are excited to go to work. And clearly this group of people who is tuning in today is excited to go to work. That's a great place to start.
Yeah, I love that is the audience that we're talking to. I'm also excited to introduce our sponsor for today's breakfast. The growth of the Good Leadership Breakfast would not be possible without the generous support of sponsors, and that's true over the past 12 years, and it's true today. You've seen all the sponsors on the screen behind Paul, and today we're featuring our presenting sponsor, Old National Bank.
2 gold bars. They stand for financial expertise, personal guidance, a sign of your success. Do you have them? At Old National Bank, your success is everything.
Hi, I'm Shadi Alamar, CEO of Wealth Management at Old National Bank. We are sponsoring this breakfast series because we believe in good leadership. What that means to us? We take care of each other, we take care of our clients, and most importantly, we take care of our communities. That's one of the reasons why we've been named a world's most ethical company 10 years in a row. Your success is everything.
Open for business has never meant so much. It says, we're here for you, and we'll get through the tough times together. At Old National, we thank all the small businesses who went that extra mile, those who reimagined service and kept their doors open to benefit us all. We're proud to have played our role, helping more than 10,000 organizations with Paycheck Protection Program loans. And now we look forward to seeing what great things our local businesses do next.
And now it's time to hear more from Bruce DeWitt. Let's start by reminding our audience you have the opportunity to send in questions for Bruce, which Chloe may ask Bruce after the break. But now, hey Bruce, let's start with your love of aviation. Where did that come from?
It actually started with my father. My dad was a jet engine mechanic in the Air Force back, in the 70s, 60s, if I have to date myself. I can remember growing up by his work. You know, I go down there where he was working. It was right on the flight line. I think by the time I was 10 years old, he had managed to make me memorize every aircraft that was flying around the Air Force bases. So that was a good fun.
So you'd see one up in the air and he'd say, "What is that?"
Yep, he would. And I wouldn't eat dinner if I got it wrong.
Obviously, you figured out how to answer all those, didn't you?
Yeah.
Pardon me. Well, it never ceases to amaze me how many different paths leaders have to getting to where they are today. Did you always want to be CEO? And if not, how did you make your way up to this role?
Yeah, I really didn't even think of being a CEO. All through my military career, I worked hard at being a test pilot acquisition guy and a career officer. But then when I retired, I went to work for Raytheon. And Raytheon, large business, aerospace contractor. And I became a senior leader in Raytheon after I really developed a love for the business side. And from there, I moved to other large public company, ATK, here in Minneapolis. And while serving as a senior leader in ATK, an opportunity presented itself to be a CEO for a private equity firm. And I couldn't spell private equity or CEO at the time. So I had to do a little research on it, and I really thought that might be an exciting place. And it was. And since then, I've become a CEO for multiple private equity firms. I've gone out, and it's a great place for me and my personality. Fast-paced, constantly changing. You just don't have time to sit.
I'm sure along the way you figured out certain things. We call them pivot points, where you learn something for how to be more high performing or how to be a better leader, better CEO. What are some of those specific pivot points that you can recall right now that you can share with us?
Yeah, I think the first happened when I was at ATK, and the CEO, the then CEO, would take the division leaders and he would grill them on anything that was going wrong within the business. And he would go through death by 1,000 questions. And I can remember one, and it was a huge learning experience about accountability for me. I was being asked a specific question on why we were below profit on this, what was going on, and I was answering point after point. But the bottom line was, it came down to it and said, look, I bid the system wrong. It's my fault. And he stopped right there. He says, that's all I needed. I needed you to be accountable. Well, that was a huge eye-opening one. But I think the second one, and probably the most important one about being an effective CEO, it was my first stint as a private equity CEO. And I came into the business, and everybody in the business was about, oh, don't worry about it. We're going to have to sell this business pretty quickly. So there's nothing really that we can do. We're just going to go about the day by day. Nobody in the business had a compelling idea of what to do, how to go forward, and what we were about. Everybody saw their lives in terms of months, not years. And you're well aware of this. Sat back, and advice from a very effective coach said, go out there, create a long-term vision, and even if you're not here to go see it all the way through, get everybody on that path. And we did that. It was extremely effective. And from that point on, having that strong, long-term vision, that path that's compelling to everyone in the business, I found is so important. It's really made me a lot better CEO.
I remember those conversations.
Yeah, I bet you do.
Yeah, vision is about physics. So if you and I are looking at the same thing and it's out there 7 years into the future, we're actually looking at the same thing.
That's right.
But when we look at what's on our to-do list, we do this.
Yep.
I look at my list and you look at yours, and everybody was looking at their to-do list, and the culture was stuck.
It was.
Okay, so the vision, the long-term vision of Testek today is to become the most successful platform company in the aerospace testing industry. For people like me, what does it mean to be a platform company?
Yeah, platform company is something that's rather unique in the vernacular of private equity, mid-sized companies. So as a mid-sized company, you really have two paths in the future. You can be the one that is bought up and pushed into another company, or you can be the one that is the base, the foundation to build on, where you are actually bolting on other companies into you. That platform company, though, you just can't say, oh, today I'm a platform company, I'm the foundation. You have to have the infrastructure. You have to have all the components to be an effective platform company. It involves around great predictable execution, strong growth, a compelling difference in the marketplace, and a stable and strong leadership team. So that's the effectiveness. That's what we're building today, so we can be that platform company in the future. And so when we change investors the next time, we're the one that they're going to bolt on to.
So my guess is that you need a lot of discretionary time to actually, work on those sorts of things, that they're not what we would call the day-to-day. You and I have talked a lot about this conversation around operational assurance. That's the theme for today's meeting. Will you tell us in your own terms, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, operational assurance is having predictable execution of the business, the ability to handle risks when they come up, the ability to find opportunities, and have the business rather boring, I guess is the best way to say it. The business functions as a constant chugging through the water. And when you have that, it frees up your senior leadership, because the business can be run by your directors. The senior leadership can step back, establish the strategy, pivot it when it's necessary, like during the pandemic times.
Yeah, that's right.
And move the business forward to get the next set of investors, the next idea out there, that pivot towards the next place in the market.
Yeah. So we work with a lot of mid-sized companies, and we find that operational assurance is very rare. The definition that we use is that operational assurance means that the directors deliver on the tactics so that the executive team can lead transformational strategies. When you formed your executive team, you had a very large group of leaders on the leadership team. We helped you shrink that down. We introduced the Goodness Pays leadership system. That's the tools and processes to help make sure you have alignment so you can create commitment, which allows for open accountability. When we talked about leadership as a system, you had this big aha moment. Can you share what that moment was like?
Yeah, actually, the way you set it up is when I walk into a business, every CEO has a game plan. And I set up three things. I set up an operating system, a financial system, and a growth or a front end system.
Yeah, sales system.
Sales system, yeah, thanks. And so I had all these set up. They were running tactically, three independently, moving along, chugging along, but I realized we weren't coordinating. We weren't working. There was something missing. And what was missing was the alignment between the leaders across all these different systems, that we were expecting the same thing. We were holding the same level of accountabilities, that we had the same values, that the employees thought of us as one group running one business. So that's when we took a step back and said, what we're missing here is that system about leadership. I'm kind of a system person. So that's when we pursued the leadership system.
So then, what was the biggest change in the business? Now, I know that you personally got a lot of your time back, but what did you see as the biggest changes actually in the day-to-day of the business?
Yeah, so we started out as a founder-based company, as many mid-sized companies do. And in a founder-based company, especially in ours, the founder was the original center point of all decisions. You couldn't go around that business and someone make a decision unless they went to that founder. He's the only one who understood the risk. He's the only one who understood the bidding. He's the only one who understood sales. So as we started putting our systems into place, what we saw was the empowerment was starting to move down. And people who had never before been able to make a decision in business started embracing that. And then they got excited about it. And then they started finding opportunities. They owned their portion of the business. That's the biggest difference.
So we have a couple of minutes here to go just a little bit deeper in this now. Can you think of an example, something that used to get bogged down by the hub and spoke system that the founder had created that's functioning so much better today, that's creating that kind of empowerment and energy?
Yeah, I guess the best one is the bidding system.
Bidding.
Yeah, so each one of our projects, our test systems, a test system is almost room size, and it's multiple millions of dollars and very complex. So this used to come in, the founder would sit down and sketch out the design and say, this is how I want it bid and this will be the price, boom, out the door. And if he was wrong, it was lost business. And no one else knew how to do that. So what we did is we started breaking that down. And said, okay, this team develops the entire proposal. They recommend the pricing based on the facts that they have in the marketplace. And we started building that and then reviewing it and having discussions about it. And pretty soon that team was able to not only create very effective and winning proposals, but also find the holes in when our losses were coming through and why we lost and how to stop that from happening again. It really has helped. We've empowered that team so much that they've changed our win rate from about 12 to 13% of proposals going out the door to north of 35 in about a year and a half.
That's transformational.
It is.
Well, so the opposite side of transformation is disruption. So not everybody likes it when things get way better in a transformation. So what were some of the signals of resistance or maybe pushback on people who maybe felt like they weren't winning in that transformation?
Yeah, that's a good point. So a lot of people who had a lot of not decision authority, but a lot of say beforehand, didn't feel disempowered, but the fact that other people were empowered to the same level they were, and maybe they weren't as senior, that caused a little bit of disruption and some bad behaviors. And so those behaviors were almost anti-cultural because you no longer had that single founder, but you had a couple people in the business that wanted to be that founder replacement. So unfortunately, that transformation can't continue until you either change that person's attitude or you relieve them. And so we had some big transformation issues with that portion of the culture had to get fixed. Difficult times.
Well, one of the things we see that is the biggest benefit for actually getting to operational assurance is that the people at the top, particularly the CEO, has a lot of discretionary time. And sometimes it's a little disorienting. You're like, what am I supposed to be doing today, right? So what are the kind of things that you're working on with that extra time?
Yeah, so the most effective one is right now I'm in what I would call the last period of this, of the ownership, the current ownership of my business. So I'm developing with my investors the path forward. What's our path to sale? What's our strategy to sale? What's going to make us unique? How are we going to raise the multiple? Looking at bolting on a couple quick bolt-ons to demonstrate that we are a platform and have the capability to do that. So I'm spending most of my time outside the day-to-day, where the first 2 years, it was deep inside.
Well, the reason you're here in the studio today is you live here in the Midwest.
That's right.
Yeah, so you and your wife actually live on a sheep farm out to the western side of Minneapolis, St. Paul, and I'm just curious to find out what was the decision-making process so that you decided to buy and move on to a sheep farm, because you're running this company like out of your spare bedroom?
Yeah, above the garage.
Above the garage,
yeah,
okay.
I've been relegated.
Yeah, so
too.
what's up with the sheep farm?
You know, it started with a dog. We bought a border collie because we fell in love with these border collies. And then my wife watches this show, and I saw this. I said, hey, look at these border collies. They can herd sheep. And it was really the coolest thing. But then I needed sheep. So, and we didn't have a farm. We lived in town. So we bought a farm, bought a handful of sheep. And so today we have multiple farms and over 400 sheep and 3 border collies.
I want to meet that dog.
Yeah,
That's
it's a very influential
pretty
dog.
special dog. Next time, bring your dog with you when we do this interview. Well, good. I'm going to throw it back to you, Chloe.
Absolutely. We'll have some questions for you from the audience, Bruce, in just a minute. But right now, I want to run another poll. Here is the next poll question. Our team reviews progress against our plan on a consistent basis, yes or no? And remember, answer that poll in the window on your right. And while you're answering that question, I want to remind you all, we have about a minute to answer the question. And I want to remind Will, which is one of the Good Leadership Breakfast's most important traditions. Today, we are making a donation of $1,500 to 4-H, a charity that's close to Bruce's heart. And on screen, you'll see the website and the QR code if you'd like to contribute to that as well.
Yeah, thanks to everyone for their generosity. We love the Bucket of Goodwill and the partnership we have with Mark Bergman, the inventor of the handy paint pail there. Before we get to the poll results, Chloe, I just want to know, what's the buzz that's brewing on social media from today's program? I suppose everyone wants to know what the dog's name is.
Yeah, I think everybody wants to know the dog's name. And we've got John out in California, and he's saying compelling conversation about a compelling plan, and that's exciting. And we have Bo here in Minneapolis saying what a great way to end the week with good leadership.
Fantastic. Well, you know what? We encourage everybody to spread the good word about goodness. Use your social media. That's important. The question that we're asking today actually comes from the Team Momentum survey again, and it's at the heart of the operational assurance idea. The team needs to really seek accountability, and that's to take the results into their own hands without expecting the boss, like Bruce, to call the meetings. That idea has really freed up Bruce to really grow his company. So now let's get back to you, Bruce. I see that we had very nice results there on the poll, and we'll continue to pull all these things together and share them. So, Chloe, what kind of questions are coming in through the audience that we want to talk to Bruce about?
Yeah, all right, here's one audience question. Bruce, what is a daily habit you have that helps your life and leadership?
Oh, that's a good question. I think there's 2 things. First, professionally, I established a very specific call structure, especially during the COVID environment, the pandemic. So I reach out to my top 5 executive leaders. We have a 15-minute session starting at 8 o'clock every morning and goes through until each one is complete. It's just a quick touch base. How you doing? I found out that, you can't wait there and say, oh, maybe I'll call, maybe I'll not. If you schedule it, it'll get done. It keeps the communication open. And then the second thing is on the professional side is at 10:30 every morning Eastern time, we have our staff stand up, where we go through all the process. So that very specific structure gives me ideas of where I need to focus my time in the afternoon. So that gets me started the right way. Personally, I do pretty much the same thing. My first thing in the morning is take care of my sheep. And so I get up very early, and I have certain ones that I'm responsible for when I'm in town. And it gets me outside, gets me going, gets me thinking about something other than myself. And
yeah, that's kind of the connection I wanted to make. Normally we recommend that leaders, care for others more than themselves to get really good results. I wouldn't talked about sheep until today. So that's okay.
Yeah, I was wondering about that.
Yeah, good.
Yeah,
what else do you have, Chloe?
Our audience, I want to recommend that our audience starts sheep farms. That's how you become a successful CEO. We have another question. Bruce, you're a numbers guy. How do you blend a goodness mindset with a numbers game?
Yeah. So I like the numbers for the results. You know, so I'm really one, like many people espouse, measure what you want to change or where you want to gain traction. And so we set up the numbers early, we set up those, and we focus on that. And the way the goodness comes in is not the fact that you're looking at the numbers, but how you review those numbers. So it's the review, the consistency in review, the non-judgmental review. So how is this going? Why are we not hitting this number? Is there something more we should be doing? How can we help? And moving in that kind of questioning format allows you to move in with goodness in your leadership style and your values. And that's what we work on in the company. No blame is the big key. And so as long as you're approaching the numbers with the idea of these numbers are telling us something, how do we help the person in charge to get them moving forward? That's really how we move.
Yeah, so in the definition of goodness, you've got encouragement, accountability, and positive teamwork. And accountability without blame is what allows us to celebrate the progress and for everybody to get better every day.
That's right.
It's been fun to watch you build that into your culture. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's very effective.
Great. Bruce, we have one more question for you. It sounds like Testek is super successful. What are you focusing on in the business now?
Yeah, so in order to set ourselves up as a platform company, which is our focus, and that's what everybody in the company, all 250 people rally around, is we wanted to make sure that all our execution was standardized, everything was going smooth. What we're focused on this year, it's our 3 strategic goals, is we're improving our niche in the marketplace by expanding our aftermarket capability. None of the other capital test equipment companies really have a strong aftermarket. So we're working hard on that aftermarket. The second thing is we're making our front end of our business more digital. We're really focusing on, it was at a basic level of digital work, but as everybody knows, the pandemic has changed all that. We're really getting in on that one. And the last is something that must be done for every platform company is make sure you're on a single ERP system. So we're installing ERP this year, one of our last years before the transition of ownership.
Gosh, the ERP systems affect every single person's job every single moment of every day.
They do.
Yeah, and boy, what we've experienced is that the people who lead that kind of technology transformation really need to understand goodness and have good people skills. Otherwise, lots of projects like that have sort of died on the coral reef. What's going well in your ERP transformation that you can share with the rest of us?
Yeah, so the first thing is what we did is we understood early. We spent a lot of time last year prepping. So the prep work is taking us into this year very effectively. But the one thing that we did really well is we set the boundaries. And in setting the boundaries for our ERP implementation, we said no customization. Because we had multiple disparate tools within the business. And we said, what we're going to do is we're just going to end up with a nightmare, constant amount of workload. We're going to buy a tool that we will use out of the box. And so that out of the box thought made us do a lot of approach to make sure the one we bought was the one we needed. And now there's no discussion about, well, we could tweak this part of the system, we could move this one. So the out of the box thinking is prevailing as we move forward. That's been making it very effective, efficient.
So I broke one of my inner rules here, and that was I was going to try to avoid acronyms. So an ERP is an enterprise resource planning system. It's software that helps everything work together. I should have said that before I asked the question.
Yeah, you and me both.
Yeah, awesome. Well,
all right, hey, Bruce.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Paul, we have a couple comments from the audience, and I have one more question that I can't help but ask. First of all, the comments, somebody's saying, I love the concept of accountability without blame. Somebody else is saying, I love that all this happened because of the dog. We do want to know, Bruce, what is the dog's name?
Yeah, her name is Nell. She's a one-eyed border collie. And our sheep business, our sheep farm is called the Pirate Sheep Company.
The Pirate Sheep Company.
The Pirate Sheep
That's
Company,
right.
Nell, the one-armed, you know what? That is absolutely fantastic. We can really delight in that visual today. Well, we can't
Yeah.
get to all these questions from the audience right now. However, after the breakfast today, I will continue to interview Bruce. We're going to have this conversation. We'll put the full interview up on the Goodness Pays Leadership podcast later this week. Before we say goodbye to Bruce, we always ask this one question of our speakers, and that question is this: what evidence can you share with us that you know for sure that goodness pays for you in your leadership?
Yeah, that's always a question that is on top of every CEO's mind. What am I doing here? How do I know it's working?
Mm-hmm.
And on a day-by-day basis, you can see your employees' engagement. It's positive. You can see them coming up with new ideas and owning the business. But that's rather subjective. And like someone pointed out, yeah, I am a numbers person.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've got three things that I know that it's working on. The first one is we have a employee promoter score. It's kind of like a net promoter score.
Mm-hmm.
Our employee promoter score is sky high, and it has been for the last two periods of measurement, the last 2 6-month periods. That's fantastic. The second one is we had last year the largest backlog. We developed the largest backlog, even through the pandemic, than we have ever had.
That's amazing.
That is amazing. And then the final one is not just specifically on Testek, but for the other companies. When you put this in, you can trade at a higher multiple when it comes time to trade the company than the industry average. And I've seen proof of that.
Well, that's spectacular, because we believe that financial results are possible, and not only possible, but are better when you follow the ideas around goodness pays. So thank you very much for being here, Bruce. We really appreciate that.
Thanks again, Bruce.
Mm-hmm.
It's been great hearing you talk about the leadership. Before we leave, I do want to introduce the one question leadership survey for the next breakfast on April 23rd. The question will be yes or no, that members of my team actively help each other succeed. So for everybody watching, you can answer right now, and we'll post this question on our LinkedIn for you to answer and share until Friday, April 23rd. And here will be Ray Kowalik, the CEO of one of the largest and most successful engineering firms, Burns & McDonnell. He was featured in the Goodness Pays book, and I'm looking forward to seeing the results of that poll and seeing all of you then.
Thank you so much, Chloe. We really appreciate the fact that you beamed in from New York City, and we'll see you in April as well. So as we close here, I just want to say that I really do believe we will look back on the pandemic as a gift. It exposed some of those things that needed to be exposed in our society, and it opened up some windows into how many things can actually be better. While most of us are yearning for hugs and handshakes and the traditional ballroom meetings, by doing this virtual broadcast, we're reaching into every corner of the United States, and that fits our mission of spreading goodness. Coming out of this pandemic, at Good Leadership, we're doubling down on the idea that was shared by Richard Davis, the former CEO of U.S. Bank, who was our speaker at the November 2019 breakfast. He said this: "The best way to protect and grow any enterprise is by building a strong leadership team. That's what good leadership does." Leaders like Bruce DeWitt, who we met today, they know that the best teams are made of people who learn to care about each other, both personally and professionally. And because they care, they build bold plans and solve difficult problems together. No one has done more research on the power of goodness to help leaders create great business results than us. Goodness is when people thrive together in a culture of encouragement, accountability, and positive teamwork. Throughout 2021, we're sharing stories of good leadership virtually, and our intention is to share the success habits of leaders who know how to make goodness pay. As we heard from Bruce today, great results are really difficult if your executive team is not aligned, committed, and openly accountable for one another's success. It all begins with knowing for sure that your team has a compelling plan. It's the most important part in how to make goodness pay. But the caution here is really simple. Our own data shows that only 54% of clients, when surveyed for the first time, actually have a compelling plan. Perhaps it's time for you as a leader to do a mid-year check-in to see if that's true with your team as well. The world needs good leaders like you to radiate goodness today. Thank you for investing in yourself, and thank you for joining us. We'll see you on Friday, April 23rd.